Greetings and welcome to the Cerebral Women Art Talks podcast. I'm Phyllis Hollis, your host. As an extension of my Instagram page, Cerebral Women, this podcast offers insights into the visual art world. I interview artists, mainly artists of color and female artists who will freely articulate what inspires their creativity. In addition, you'll hear interesting perspectives from dedicated art professionals who work with artists and the art institutions that feature them. I'm confident that collectively, these individuals will indeed stimulate your mind as they do our eyes. Please know these interviews are conducted in my Manhattan apartment, so please forgive the background sounds of city life. Welcome to the Cerebral Women Art Talks podcast. This episode features figurative painter and lecturer Mario Moore. He currently works and lives in Detroit, Michigan. A Detroit native, Mario received a BFA from the College for Creative Studies in Detroit and an MFA in painting from the Yale School of Art. He is a recent Kresge Arts Fellow and a recipient of the prestigious Princeton Hodder Fellowship. He has also been awarded residencies at Duke University, Josef and Annie Albers Foundation, Fountainhead, and Knox College. Mario's work is in the permanent collections, but not limited to, the Detroit Institute of Arts, Princeton University Art Museum, and the Studio Museum in Harlem. His work has been widely exhibited at the Smart Museum of Art, the Cranbrook Art Museum, Deitch Gallery in Los Angeles, the Arthur Roger Gallery in New Orleans, the Cleveland Museum of Art, and the Colby College Museum of Art. Mario Moore, Enshrined Presence and Preservation exhibition was his largest survey of work to date. It opened at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History in Detroit in June of 2021 and traveled to the California African American Museum in March of 2022. This was his first solo exhibition on the West Coast. Mario's most recent traveling exhibition, Revolutionary Times, opened at the Flint Institute of Arts in January of 2024 and closed at the Grand Rapids Art Museum in August of 2024. Please visit cerebralwomen.com for his expanded bio and enjoy this episode featuring Mario Moore. Mario, welcome to my Cerebral Women Art Talks podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, my pleasure. When did you recognize that you would be a visual artist?
I had to be really young. And the reason why I say that is because my mother's an artist, so it's all I've known for a long time. But I have these stories as a kid, specifically with my dad, and him drawing a little pumpkin head man. And we would sketch back and forth, and he'll draw his pumpkin head man, and I would draw mine. And gradually over time, I'm about 5 years old or something at this point, my pumpkin head became better than his. And I just continued to draw as he stopped. But it's something I think I've known, from a really young age, especially looking at my mom's work, looking at her friends who were also artists, and seeing them turn objects, canvases from nothing into something. I thought it was magnificent. I was like, I want to do that.
Yeah, that's great. That's great to have that type of influence around you as a child.
Yeah, it was an amazing childhood.
How do you define your practice?
I think I define my practice as being something like a science lab. And what I mean by that is I don't want to get bored with what I make. I don't want to be repetitive. I'm a painter, I'm a sculptor, I've done performance before, I've done video work, but primarily my love is within oil painting. And in my practice, I try to create a space that anyone in the world can walk into. And what I mean by that is the level of realism that I use in my work. I want you to feel like you're a part of that world. So no matter what I'm making or how I'm making it, that is the kind of basis. And I think empathy is incredibly important. whatever I make, empathy is at the forefront of it. How do I get people to see something they would otherwise ignore or they would look past? And I think that's how I would define it, as being open and transformative and moving through different mediums. And it's essentially so I don't bore myself to death in the studio.
Yeah, I can't imagine that. So while you're working, are you thinking about your audience and what will cross their mind as they view your work?
I used to think a lot about who's going to view it, what their thoughts on it would be, how to get white people engaged in my work, how to get other cultures engaged in my work, but I don't anymore. I think the most important thing for me is that I make what I make, and I make what I want to make. And that the importance of that is just opening space in the work for whoever it is that is willing to engage with it, does that. But no, I don't think about my audience anymore.
Mm-hmm. And what was a catalyst for you in making that change?
I think it was thinking about the art world and thinking about commerce, money, all those kind of things, and trying to remove that as much as possible from the creative space. Because as an artist, and this is something that you really don't learn in art school or grad school or anything like that, you're also an entrepreneur, but you're an artist first, you're a creative first. So for me, the most exciting ideas come from just the joy and ingenuity of creating. And in that space, I don't want to have any ideas or concepts or preconceived notions holding my ideas back in my studio. So that space has to remain a lab. It has to remain a fluent space where ideas can just flow, and I'm not, hearing from a curator, or I'm not hearing from a collector. Those things need to stay outside of the studio. And when I think that way, I make the most exciting work. So from that flow and that feeling is, okay, I need to keep this. Everything else is outside of the studio.
Are there concepts or thoughts that connect your work?
I believe so. I think right now, biggest thing has been time and history. And what I mean by that is the connection that we have right now to our past. So in every way possible, in my last bodies of work and my most recent, I'm looking at the past and realizing the connections, and I'm making the pieces have a conversation with that past. So whether it's about the Civil War and how we were facing very similar things in 2020, or how we're facing very similar things in this election that's getting ready to happen, or if it's thinking about pioneers of the Underground Railroad and considering who the pioneers are now, it's looking at the past and making those distinct connections. And to me, that's the through line in my work, is how I'm dealing with time.
That's very interesting. What is the role of drawing in your work?
Oh, drawing is drawing is the person you grew up with, and you've known them for so long that every nook and cranny and every concept and every way they think. And I feel like for me, I explore a lot more in drawing than I actually do in painting. Drawing feels more free. And painting has this entire heavy history and weight on it that you have to enter into. But drawing guides my entire practice. I draw and sketch everything out for the most part before I start a painting. And usually it's a scribble-scrabble concept that nobody will understand but me. But in that initial drawing form, that gives me the idea on what I need to do in the painting. Even in sculpture, I'll draw and sketch out a composition or a way I want the lines to flow. And then I pull that together in sculpture. So drawing is really close to me. When I was a professor, I would tell my students to keep a small sketchbook on them, something that I need to listen to myself. But I have a lot of sketchbooks, and I have some small ones that every now and again I'll keep it on me. But, it's a great way of thinking. It's almost like instead of me writing or journaling, I tend to draw, and that kind of lets my ideas flow.
So let's talk about your sculptures. What materials do you use?
So in the beginning, And a lot of people don't notice about me that when I show a sculpture, they're like, oh my gosh, you sculpt, because I'm known as a painter. But I've been making sculptures since like undergrad. And for the most part, I was really into silicone, hyperrealism, punching in hairs and making it look like the most realistic thing or person, just making it smaller or making it larger. So I start my sculptures in clay. I like water-based clay because it just feels natural, but I've also used oil-based clay. And then I go to the process of making a mold, but eventually the outcome of the sculpture is a silicone. I made a large-scale silicone sculpture of Robert Frederick Smith, and it was hyper-real. It was in a traveling Smithsonian exhibition, and I punched in each individual hair and painted it with silicone colors. But I'm more interested now in something that's more permanent, whether it's bronze. I'm really interested in stone, and I'm trying to find my way through it. And I've been looking at ancient Egyptian sculpture, particularly the Middle Kingdom. And those things are really fascinating to me. So that's where my mind is now on sculpture when it comes to bronze and stone, things that last.
Sounds exciting.
I think so. I'm excited.
Yeah, it sounds like it. How do you keep learning?
You have to be humble, and you have to always be a student, meaning even as you move through the world and as you feel like you know a little something to tell other people, you also have to be a receiver. And I think that's really important, because sometimes I feel like whether you're a professor or a writer or a visual artist, whatever it is, you feel like you might be all-knowing. And in that way, you lock yourself off from expanding. And I think that's the most important things humans can do, is continue to learn. So I'm always reading, I'm always listening, I'm always open to new ideas. I don't think anything is beyond me or I'm too big for in any way. So I'm always listening to what people say, and I'm always reading and exploring. I'm a big archival person. I like to dive into history and find buried stories and think about, well, why don't people know this thing? And yeah, I think I'm just a forever student.
Don't change. When do you know work is finished?
That's so hard. So hard. I think for me, it's a feeling. The work is finished when it has a certain feeling, because you can work on any piece of artwork for the rest of your life. You can just keep going, but it has to feel right. When it feels right, I know it's done.
And when do the titles enter the creative process?
I've had different ways for me. Sometimes the titles come at the same time as the concept of the work comes. And then sometimes the titles come with music, depending on what I'm listening to. And then sometimes the titles come after the piece is actually finished. But for the most part, for the majority of my works, titles come with the idea and concept as I'm sketching out and feeling through what I'm going to make. The titles come right then.
And when you're working and you're listening to music, what music are you listening to?
I listen to a lot of stuff. I listen to house music. I listen to techno, some good old Detroit techno. I'm really an old school person, so Motown, the Dramatics, Delphonics, Temptations, all of that it stays in my studio. And then it depends on the work, because sometimes I might want to listen to some hardcore rap if I'm like feeling tired and I need a certain energy going in the studio. Sometimes I might listen to Miles Davis or different jazz. Yeah, so I think it really, the music is dictated honestly by what I'm working on and how I'm feeling in the studio.
Love that. Do you feel Black art can be defined?
I feel that it's not an easy question, but at the same time, Black art can, for me personally, only be defined by people who make the art being Black. That makes it Black art. Other than that, it's so expansive. That's the only detail that defines it in that way for me.
If you weren't a visual artist, what career path do you think you would have chosen?
Oh, I like that one. Probably an archaeologist or some kind of scientist.
At any point, were you influenced by other artists?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. My mom being the first, Sabrina Nelson. And it's changed over time. You know, I was really into the Renaissance when I was a kid. I was, fascinated by Michelangelo. And I remember looking at a book that my mom had in her house. And it was this Black figure sitting in a pool of water. And I was so fascinated by this picture. I didn't know who the artist was, but years later, falling more in love and figuring out who this artist was, it was Kerry James Marshall. And, he just kind of took over. I have some big influences. For me, I'm always looking to the past, distant past. Velázquez being at the top, Joplin Sorolla, and then Kerry James Marshall and Barclay Hendricks are my titans.
Share with us, what are you excited about right now?
Ooh, I'm really excited about an exploration of ownership, land ownership. And it's something that I've been thinking about. This next body of work that I'm going to do is the concept and idea of, especially for Black people who've traveled through the Great Migration and dealt with 400 years of slavery and all these kind of things. And the idea of having land and ownership is supposedly the want and purpose of living in this country. And it's become so elusive for millennials, Gen Z, but what was it all for if we can't get that? So for me, it's exploring that history of home ownership, space, creating a safe space for yourself. What does that look like? And those are the things that I'm really diving into.
Thank you for sharing that. As an artist, what would you say have been some of the most substantial challenges that you've had to deal with?
I think first, I would have to say, not just as an artist, but as a human being, the biggest challenge I've had is staying on my feet, figuring out how to pay the bills, pay the rent, that kind of thing. And then from there, it was actually, I had a tumor and I had to have brain surgery. And that was one of the biggest challenges. This was about 7 years ago, 2017.
Sorry to hear that.
And as an artist, I had to slow way down. I had to stop making work for a few months. I mean, I told myself I slowed down, but it rapidly picked up. But I wasn't making anything. I wasn't creating anything. I was doing some small drawings and things like that to get through the recovery. But that entire experience told me and taught me the value of life and care for family, people you hold dear, friends and things like that. And I think with that, it also told me to embrace community more. So as an artist, I'm always interested in trying to share resources with other creatives as much as I can when opportunities arise. But that was the biggest challenge, was getting through that period of time when I couldn't make anything. And I think that's the hardest thing for an artist, is the moment where they can't express themselves. That can be a challenge, but yeah, I'm making a lot of stuff now. So all is well, all is well.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that with us. Definitely a happy ending. That's wonderful. I count our blessings.
Absolutely.
So what is your process of choosing color?
I feel like it's also the same as when a work is finished. It's a feeling. I find myself working on paintings longer than I usually do, meaning I might put a color down and I take my own photographs for reference for different things that I'm painting. And of course, there's original color that's there, but sometimes it just doesn't work. And what you need in a painting is a painting. And it has to be felt and seen in that way. So for me, color it can be very intuitive, really. Like, I need this color to sit next to this color in a very particular way. And I feel like a lot of my ideas on color actually came from doing solo-wit walls. I did a couple of solo-wit projects right out of grad school. And it really showed me color in a really strong way and how to juxtapose it and think about hard lines and edges and things like that. And then I did a residency at the Albers Foundation, and that's like the godfather of color. So I was able to explore and think about how he makes colors radiate next to each other. And yeah, but I think it's a intuitive process after you get through all the technicalities. It's a feeling.
This has been a great conversation. And next question, not the final question, but what do you feel is the purpose of art?
I think the purpose of art is to deliver information. And it's to deliver information in a different way from every other kind of, whether it's writing, whether it's science, math, whatever, any other kind of vocation, if you want to use that word. But it's a way of delivering information. And the information, for me at least, should be open so that the people or the person receiving the information can add their own concepts and values to the information that's being delivered. That's what I think art is.
So this is the final question. So as an artist, and based on what you just shared with us, what do you feel is your purpose? Yeah.
Well, I think I'm here to show a mirror to our society. I think that's my purpose. I think about great creatives like someone like James Baldwin, and I think about the duty to record, but also to reflect, also to open up questions, also to make sure I'm asking the questions that people are afraid to ask. Yeah, I think it's, for me at least, to hold up a mirror to society.
Well, thank you for everything you do. Your work is very strong. That's great. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, and thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to Cerebral Women Art Talks podcast. For additional content, please visit cerebralwomen.com and be sure to follow Cerebral Women on Instagram.